Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Ches in Yevmot. Daf Ches, and we learned for Shlomo ben Elazar ben Ruben Yosef Esriel ben Chaim Michal. So yesterday we got into the discussion. The question was, since the Sefer says, the Gemara said right after the mission, since the Sefer says that if she got married without the reshus of Bezin, meaning she got married with Adam, it's mashma the Reish is speaking about, she got married without Adam. So that means to say, husband went overseas. One aide shows up and says he's dead. She gets married. Where do we get this idea that one aide is believed? We know when it comes either to marital matters, when it comes to Surah Erva, sexual matters, or when it comes to money, you need two aidim. Where do we get this idea that one aide helps? So we're looking for a source. Where do we get the one aide helps? And we can't find it. Apparently, the Gemara Beis couldn't find one. We said if it's speaking of two aidim come, so we don't need a pasuk. And if it's one aid, where do we find that one aid works? So he said, well, look at the case on the top of the page. We said maybe it's speaking of a svara, midi davechaticha suffix, about the fifth line of the page is el svara midi davechaticha suffix shel chaylev. We have a piece of meat. We're not sure if it's chaylev, which is not just not kosher meat. It means chaylev. It's punishment of chorus or chayva carbon chatzif yet b'shogeg. We're not sure if it's chaylev or it's not sure if it's just fat, if it's a good piece of meat. And when a person comes along and says, I know that it's kosher, the mehemen. Don't we have mashkichim all over the place? They say the food's kosher, right? You can trust this. It's Rabbi Reuben, Rabbi this, Rabbi that, right? The Meshuvah. So you see one aide's beliefs. There's no presumption that it's usher. We don't know that it's usher. Here, the woman was married. One aide comes along and says, no, her husband's dead. She's not married anymore. Something when it comes to marital matters, comes to the issue of sexual misconduct, you need to aidim. Maybe you want to compare it something. In other words, if of course we have mashkichim all over because there's a presumption that it's kosher. You need a mashkich to tell you that it is that he knows it's kosher. But there's no presumption that it's not kosher. As we said, if you go into an Italian pizzeria in Bensonhurst or something like that, and you say, I think this is kosher, I think it's kosher in here with the, how do they make the pizza with the salami on it? Pepperoni, I don't think one aide is going to be believed to tell you that it's kosher, right? So there's a presumption there that it's not kosher. There's no presumption. Oh, you're talking about something like the Italian pepperoni. One guy comes along and says, I know it's okay. I know it's kosher. I know it's kosher. They use fake meat there, whatever it is. I know it's kosher. He's not believed there. So how can you compare it? Where do we get this idea that one aide is believed? Gemara says, what? You compare it to that case where you know it's kosher. Even if 100 guys would come and tell you that the pepperoni is kosher when we know it's not, he wouldn't be believed. Here, if two people come and say that the guy's dead, husband went overseas, and two people come and say he died, he believes. So maybe chadnan, maybe one person should also be believed. Tevel hektish and konomas are going to be three issues that we have over here. That if one person comes along and says that I know it's okay, meaning tevel that they took off the trumas and maisras. When it comes to hektish, I know it's okay. We'll talk about the case of what it means over here. And konomas, which is a kind of a netter, that one person is believed. Maybe over here, one person we believe, just like since if two people will come, the case where we know that the meat's not kosher, everybody knows, even if 100 people would tell, we wouldn't believe them because we know that's not the case. It's like saying when you know there's a fact, there's no union of belief. What does belief in God mean? Belief means that there's room to doubt. Otherwise, there's nothing we say, what is it? I think Rashi said there from Mikan, that they believed in Tchias HaMesim and Olam Haba. Why not just because they believe what they saw? Because they saw it. They saw God. When you see it in front of you, there's nothing to believe. I don't believe that this is Gemara over here. I don't have to believe. I believe this is a volume of the Gemara. You don't believe that. It's right in front of you. Belief means that there's room for doubt. So here, when you know that the guy's, I can tell you the case yesterday, the guy shows up. And they know it's him. She knows, everybody knows it's him. There's no Adam over here. Adam don't mean anything when you know something. So here they know something, Adam aren't believed. But in a case where the man went overseas and two people showed up and said, two kosher Adam showed up that said that he's dead, there we believe them. So maybe over here, maybe one aid should be believed, just like the case of tevel, hektish, and tumah. So we're going to discuss now. So one says, what do you mean those cases? What are those cases? Hi tevel echidami. What is tevel? Tevel means produce in the field that was not separated trumas and maasros from. Edi day, if it's his own, and he says, I know that I took truma shim dialo takma. That's him because he could amend it himself. He could fix it himself. He can make it fit himself by taking trumas and maasros. There you believe because you're in control. Ella the acher, maybe it's somebody else's. So Mike Iksaver, Torah Mishalal Shechaber Ein Soch Dasbaum. Can you take truma for somebody else without them knowing about it? There's no one in the field there. You see stuff is growing. He's overseas. You say, I'll do him a favor. I'll take trumas maasros. Can you do that? If that works, so then it's also the reason your belief to say that trumas maasros because you could do it yourself. You don't need the owner's consent. And if you say no, you can't do it. You can't fix somebody else's trumas maasros. It's ineffective unless the owner agrees to it, consents to it. I know you took it, and I know that it's fixed. So he gufa minolan. How do we know that that's it? How do we know that one person's believing in a case like that? When there's something that's chazak yisur, you see produce out in the field, and the assumption is he hasn't been taking trumas maasros. And one guy comes along and says, took trumas maasros. If he's the owner or he has the ability to take the trumas maasros himself because you don't need the owner's consent. Okay, so that's why he's believing because he could do it himself if he wants to. So why not believe him? He could do it himself. But if he's not able to do it himself, how do we know Taka that he's believed? Maybe he's only believing the case where he's the owner or he has the ability to do it himself.
Don't you have the other
maybe it's not a schus. That's only if it's a merit. Maybe he wants to do the mitzvah himself. Maybe it's not a schus for him. What's the advantage? He says, I'm out of town. I don't need the trumas maasros. I'll take it when I come home.
Want to give a different
we'll give it about, give it to a different coin, whatever the reason is. That's not zachan is you found something for somebody who he needs it. You can be mazaket for him. Where it's a schus for him. Here we don't know that it's a schus for him.
What would be the reason that you could take for somebody else? What's the reason?
Maybe it is because of zachan l'am shalom because if you know that it's zachan shalom shalom means in general where he's happy with it. But if you don't know that he's happy with it, so maybe you can't. So that's the assumption. That's the reason why that's a shala. And it's dasbam, dini dasbam, and you're doing it as a zachan. Maybe it is because maybe Abraham's right. Zachan shalom fanav. Maybe that's good for the question: is zachan shalom fanav or not? In this case, but you could see why it's not always a schus for the guy. Maybe he wants to do it himself, give it to a different coin, whatever. Hektish nami. What's the case? Kedushas dam. What kind of hektish? There's two kinds of hektish. You give some to the base of one is kedushas dam, just the money with the value. It's not going to be a carbon. It's not a short kesef or A's or flour that's going to be used, or oil or wine that's going to be used in a libation and as part of a sacrifice. If it's in like wood or some animal that's not kosher for a carbon or whatever, if it's kedushas dam, shouldn't be able to lift us. So you could be poted. Anybody could be poted. You couldn't be poted somebody else's. If somebody gives something to base of mikdash and you want to take it out, you can be poted. Give money to base of mikdash, you can be poted. So again, you have the ability to do something. Kedushas saguf, and if it's kedushas idi day. If it's his own kedushas saguf, or kedushas saguf, you can't be poda unless it gets a mum, or let's say it's not a question of a mum. Let's say it's oil or wine or something like that. But again, if it's his own, he can ask for his hegdish to be disallowed. It's like a neder that you go to the rabbi and he's matzah the neder. So if it's his own, because matzah el the acher, maybe it's somebody else's matzah. So who says you can do it? I know this shul. I know that it's okay to use. Because I know that the owner who was makdish it, he already went to the rabbi and got a Torah Sidorim on that. So he goofed him. How do we know that works? You want to say that, 8 echad should be believed, since 2 Eidim are believed to say the guy died. The same thing, 1 Eid, just like Tevel or Hegdish. How do we know the one guy's believed when it's not his and he doesn't have the ability to fix it himself? Konim Islami is where Konim is a person. We had this in a Dharam. We're going to see that again. It's shown in a few months when we learn a Dharam. Person says, this is also to me like a Konim. It's like a kind of way like a carbon. So what is it? It's a question, what is a konim? If you hold that konim is like being mocked or something, and therefore you can commit sacrilege on because it has kedusha. This wood is also me like a konim. It means it's like kedusha stam. So again, you can be poted. The question is not a question of me'il, it's not kedusha stam, but rather it's simply a vow that you say this is usher to me like a carbon, but it's just maybe you're vowing that this is us to you. This or ba'amu, the rachav like I said, is simply an isser that's on his shoulder, so to speak, that it's also for him to use. It's like he made a netter. So again, Edi Day shouldn't be able to, if it's his own, because he can go to the rabbi and be matra netter on this tonim. El the somebody else's, or it's somebody else, and I say I know that he was already got a tarsadar on it, so you go from it all. In other words, if this is something that a person said, he gave this and he said nobody can use this. He forbids everybody to use this item that he has, and that's what the konim is over here. And one guy comes along and says, "I know he was matra netter on it." How do you know he's believed? Where do you get this idea from him? In other words, aid in the Torah when it talks about two kosher witnesses in the Torah to be made about a money matter or to be made about a sexual matter or marriage, matrimony matter, marriage, divorce, etc. You need two kosher Adam, two men, two kosher Shomer Shabbos Adam. That's what you need too. Where do you get this idea that one is believed? Why is one believed in our mission? A woman went overseas. A guy comes up and shows up and says, "I know your husband died." She can get married based on that. They go to court and says, "Okay, we have nothing else. We'll be matzor." Why? Where do you get this idea? 1-8. Like we explained yesterday, Amar of Zera. Because the rabbi said, "Okay, look, you realize that if you're making a mistake over here and your husband shows up again, you're going to need to get from both. You're going to have to leave both. You're going to have to leave both marriages. No ksuba, no paris. Kids are mamzerim from the first marriage and the second marriage. We'll talk about that. How does the kid from the first marriage and mamzer? All the difficult things are happening to you. You can't marry a Kohen. You can have truma. All the things are going to happen because they say, you know what? You better be careful. So because of the chumras that we said, listen, be very careful because we're going to put all these penalties upon you if you mess up. They were making only said, okay, you'll let you marry. So lo lachmer v'leiko. So don't put any chumras on her and don't be makel. Just say, I'm sorry, you can't get married until you have two kosher witnesses. The answer is mishimiguna kila barabanan. Because of any guna, we don't want her to be a chained woman. The runner or makel. Yesterday, I think Alan sent me some article from or a video from some rabbi or doctor in America who talked about the issues that came up after the Shoah, that many men couldn't find their wives, and they signed some sort of a document in front of the rabbis that if the wife shows up, I'll agree to whatever the court says. But the real problem is with the women whose husband, they didn't discuss that. Women. What do women do? I mean, there weren't too many cases. Unfortunately, so many people were killed that there were very few cases, if any, where a woman remarried thinking that her husband died and then he showed up. It's a very rare case. But they said that's why you have to check. The rabbi said, listen, we want to be makel because we don't want you to be a chained woman forever and ever. That's the real case of Iguna. Bisman Hazeh, where everybody's found, the issues come up. It's very, very rare. In other words, Russia gave a great share on this a few months back, how then in many cases over the years, he brought down all the various sheets from the Rishonim and Achronim, and century by century, the various schools, he says, and today with smartphones and the technology we have, it's almost impossible for somebody to lose himself. Like they say, go off the grid, like they have in the movies and the books, goes off the grid and you can't find the guy. That doesn't happen anymore. They always find him at the end, right? They always find him at the end. And that was without the technology. It's very hard to say, we don't know what happened to the guy. They'll find the guy. Today it's more because of what they call siruv get. They don't want to, the husband doesn't want to give the get, or the wife doesn't want to accept the get. It's not really so much case of iguna. The classic iguna is this case where a guy went on business, overseas somewhere, and he didn't show up, and nobody knows where he is. And so they said you got to check it out. We'll believe even 1A. We'll see when we believe 1A. We believe almost anybody, even a woman who's not kosher regulars or other people psulim goyim whatever. We believe him because we don't want to be any good. But we tell her you better check things out yourself, because if you mess up, you're going to be disqualified from everybody, and all these various isurim, all these chumras that we talk about in the Mishnah are going to come upon you. So the Mishnah said, Teitzim mizeh mizeh. Okay, now her husband shows up. Teitzim mizeh mizeh. Amarav, listen to this. That's only if she got married based on 1A, meaning 1A she went to court, and they said, okay, get married. And guy shows up, her husband just, but if she got married with 2 Adam came in saying he's dead. There's nothing stronger than 2 Adam, right? If 2 Adam say Yankel killed Shmerel and 100 Adam say he didn't kill, 2 is command. Of course, he wouldn't kill. It's 2 against 2, but 2 is like any, or 2 people, 100 people come and say that Yankel killed Shmerel, and 2 say he didn't. So you don't kill them. 2 against 2. There's nothing stronger than 2. Low takes it. She doesn't have to leave the second marriage. That's what it sounds like. If 2 people come along and say that your husband Ruvain died, right? Now she married Yankel, let's say. Sounds like low takes it. Why? But 2 people said, what do you mean? 2 people said, my husband died. I don't care what's going on now. 2 people said, my husband died. I'm free to marry. And now the husband showed up. It seems to be that the husband showed up, and Rav says, you know what? If 2 people said she died, I don't care if he showed up. What do you mean? Her husband showed up, right? How could you say she doesn't have to leave the second marriage? Machlum Marava, they laughed at him in Eretz Yisrael. Also, Gavra, the husband, came home because he's standing here in front of us. And you're saying, what do I care about 2 Adam? He's here. 2 Adam said he's dead. He showed up. How could you argue with that? How can you say she doesn't have to leave the second marriage? We're assuming now that that's what he means. Lo Tate say she doesn't have to leave the second marriage. So what does that mean? So Lo Tzricha, we don't know if this is the guy. The guy showed up, but we don't recognize him. Showed up many years later, and we don't recognize him. We don't know if it's him. She got married. 2 Adam come and said, your husband dead. Okay, she got married to Yankel. Okay, now a guy shows up and says, I'm your husband. And they tried on his shoes and his pants, whatever. There's stories about that, right? They didn't know. They don't know. So if they don't know it's him, wait a minute. We said that if the husband showed up, so that's only if one aide said that her husband was dead. But if 2 ate him, then he doesn't believe. But if we don't recognize this guy, even with 1 aide, why do you have to show? In other words, Misha said she got married based on the testimony of 1 aide who said that her husband died. Now he showed up, so she should leave both marriages, right? That's only if it was 1 aide. It's 2 ate him not. Wait a minute. If we don't recognize the husband when he came back, why does she have to leave him? 1 aide said he was dead, and she got married based on that. And now a guy shows up and said, I'm your husband, and we don't know that it's him. We don't recognize him. Why does she have to leave the marriage now? We don't know who this guy is. He's a stranger. We don't know who he is. So the Gemara says, let's look at here's what happened. 2 Adam, what do we say? 2 Adam come along and say your husband died, she got married to Yankel. Okay. Now 2 other Adam come along and we don't know this guy. The guy shows up. Now the husband shows up. We don't recognize him. So if we don't recognize him, what's the issue? What happened was 2 other people came along and said, I know he looks different now, but we were with him. We were his business partners. We went overseas with him a few years back. And I understand 2 people said he was dead. He was never dead. He was with us the whole time. We were with him from the time that he left town till now. You don't recognize him. We recognize him. Why wouldn't you recognize him after all this time? Pasuk says, when the brothers showed up down in Egypt, what happened? Right? He knew who they were. They didn't recognize him. Why? Because when they left, when they left, he was a boy of what? 17? How old was he? He was 17. He hadn't yet grown in his beard. He had a little fuzz, yeshivish fuzz, but he didn't have much, right? Now he's an adult, 30 years old. He's got a full beard. An Egyptian beard, even better, right? Even better, right? So they didn't recognize him. So that's what happened over here. So what's going on over here? 2 people said, she got married originally because 2 people said your husband dead. She went and married Yankel. Now some guy shows up. They don't know. They don't recognize him. She doesn't recognize him. But he shows up with 2 Adam would say, this is the husband. We were with him the whole time. You remember us. We were with him the whole time. So Gemara says, pardon?
She can say that she doesn't recognize.
Well, whatever. But we if she's lying, listen, a woman can go and commit adultery and do whatever she wants and be punished for it. We're talking about here where we don't recognize him. So Gemara says, train him. But again, so what? Still, she can't get married. It's 2 against 2. What happened? She was originally married to Reuven, let's say, right? And 2 people came along and said Reuven's dead. 2 other people come along with some guy called Reuven, and they say, well, this is the same Reuven. This is the guy. Okay, so it's 2 against 2. What would you say if 2 against 2? She was married before. You need something stronger than 2 against 2, right? So Habala Bashim Toli. At least say you don't have to leave. You need Hashim Toli. You're not sure. If it's 2 against 2, you're not sure if you committed the act or not. Did she commit adultery or not? Okay, so you have to bring an Asham Tali. You have to bring a carbon that says, I'm not sure if I sinned or not. That was what Yankel would have to bring, right? What happened? 2 Adam said, Reuben's dead. 2 Adam said, this is Reuben, he's not dead. Okay, meanwhile, Yankel had married her, right? So he should bring an Asham Tali. So he has to bring an Asham Tali. You only bring an Asham Tali when you're not sure in your heart if I sinned or not. I'm not sure. And maybe I ate the chaylev, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. I'm not sure, I got to bring an Asham Tali. Over here, though, she married one of the Adam who said he was dead, right? 2 Adam came along and said Reuben was dead. Let's marry that Mishnah. And she married one of them. So he doesn't bring an Asham Tali. He knows, he says, I know he's dead. Okay, what about her? Because just that, we learned a couple of days ago that what? That whenever a man is chayiv on something, a woman is also chayiv on something. Kohen can't marry Grusha, Grusha can marry Kohen, right? So what about Higufa? Basham Tali, she would have to bring an Asham Tali because she's not sure. Bomeres Borili. No, I believe him. I believe my new husband. I'm sure I didn't do something. He said, okay, what's the chiddush in that? What's going on over here? What's going on? I feel, what's the chiddush? I feel Rav Yossi. We're going to talk about Rav Yossi in a minute. He says over there, okay, what happened? 2 Adam came along and said he was dead. Then 2 other Adam come along and said he's not dead. And then she married Yankel. That's a little bit of a chutzpah, right? 3 people said he was dead. Okay, she was grieving. 2 other Adam came along and said, here's your husband. He's here, and this is him. And then she married Yankel. There he says that's no good. That's bad. Then you have to leave. She got married based on 2 Adam who said he was dead. Now 2 other Adam come and say he's not dead. Yeah, but she's already married to the second guy, and she did that innocently, right? She didn't commit any sin on purpose. Lo Amri didn't say that to Tanya. We're going to have this case now. We're going to explain this now. So again, in this case, we say over there, what's the chiddush? What's the chiddush in that? What are we saying? The case is 2 people came along and said, your husband's dead. She got married to somebody else, the Yankel, based on that. Now 2 other Adam come and son, here's your husband, here's Yankel. She doesn't recognize it. 2-8, it's 2 against 2. Yeah, but I married this guy innocently. Why should I believe the second 2? Believe the first 2 said he's dead. But so even Rav Yossi talks about this case only. When should we have to leave it? Only if she had the chutzpah of getting married to Yankel after the other 2 came along and said that he's alive. That's already pretty bad, right? Because it's 2 against 2. But at this state, you have to assume that you're still married. Now you marry Yankel. The Tanya we learned Shnaimo Meis Shnaimo. 2 people say a guy's dead. Let's say 4 guys showed up. 2 people say he's dead. 2 people say he's not dead. Or Shnaimo and Gruskash Shnaimo says 2 people say he gave you a get or he gave her a get, and 2 people said not dead. So Rachel shouldn't get married. Then this is lo teitze. If she got married, she doesn't have to leave the marriage. That's what the Tanakhama says. From Nachman says, no, teitze, she should leave. She should leave. That's a chutzpah. If she got married innocently based on the testimony of the first 2 Adam who said she was divorced or the guy died, okay, there was nobody else at the time, she's okay. If Adam came and then she got married based on that, and then the other Adam showed up and said, no, he's still alive. If she got married and then the Adam came, she doesn't have to leave the marriage. So again, even Rav Yossi only says in a case, where does he say that she has to leave the second marriage? When she had the chutzpah to get married to Yankel after there was already a fight about was he dead or was he not dead. But if she got married based on testimony of the first 2 Adam who said he's dead or he divorced her and she's allowed to get married and she got married based on, and then 2 other Adam came, she has not to leave the marriage. Answers Kikam Rav Nami Bisman Shabo Adam Yachkach Nisses. Rav is saying even a chiddush bigger, that he's going like the Tanakama. When Rav says he's not going Rav Nachman Yosef, Kiyam Rav Nami Bisman Shabo Adam Yachkach Nisses. Pukim Rav Yosef Nachman Yosef. Meaning, what Rav says over there is this again. Rav started off by saying, this is what we're saying the mission is that she has to leave the second marriage is only if she got married based on the testimony of 1 Adam. But if it's the testimony of 2 Adam, she doesn't have to leave. Why not? Her husband showed up. Oh, we don't recognize the husband. It's speaking about where 2 Adam come along and say he's alive after 2 Adam came and said he's dead. And what Rav is saying is more than Rav Nachman Yossi according to the first member over here. What we're saying, Rav says, even if she got married to Yankel after the second set of Adam showed up, the first set of Adam said he's dead. 2 other Adam come along and say, this is him. He's not dead. He's right here. This is him. He's our business partner. He's been with us the whole time. And now she gets married to Yankel. She doesn't have to leave the marriage because it's 2 against 2. That's what Rav is saying, more than Rav Nachman Yossi. Or Ibai Sema, or the Ikan Amri says that no, that he's not saying more. No, what's Rav's Kiddush in there? Even Rav Nachman Yossi doesn't say that. I goes further than Rav Nachman Yossi. If we must be Ikan Amri, some say it should be like Ikan Amri. Tamid and Nisvi Afkaf Bo'edim. It's telling you this only because she got married first, and then the second set of Adam came out. This is if Adam came and then she got married, takes a command of Nachman Bar Yossi. That could be what Rav is saying. Okay, so Rav is saying that again when he said if two Adam came along, she doesn't have to leave the marriage, meaning the second marriage. Why? Why wouldn't she have to leave if the guy showed up? Because we don't know that this is the guy. It's 2 against 2, and that's what Rav is saying. Masav Rav Eskasha Menayin Shim Lo Rotza Dafno. What does that mean? A Kohen is going out, is dating, let's say, a woman that he shouldn't be dating. She's his owner. Some question about her marriage, right? So if he doesn't want to walk away from that, we force him out. We thought this a Kohen. Kohen has to be on a higher degree of kedusha. V'skadishtam tamam v'kidashto. You have to sanctify the Kohen. Bal karcho, even forcing him. You have to compel him to stay clean. What's the case? What happened here? You're talking about a woman who suspiciously she got married after some testimony. So if we're speaking about the low nisas, she didn't marry one of her Adam below Kamer Barley, and she doesn't know that this is my husband. She doesn't know who the guy is, and she didn't get married to him. Of course, you're going to force him out. She doesn't know that this is that her husband's dead, and she didn't marry one of her Adam. What happened? Aid came along and said, your husband died, and now these Adam come along and say your husband didn't die. Of course, we force her. You shouldn't go around because she's possibly a zona. Says Rashi. Rashi says, he's fooling around with a woman who's puzzled. Every time he says, the Habadai be Isra Meforsim, I feel a base of Suffolk low, the body can feel, of course. If a man is fooling around with a woman who's a Grusha, Cohen is married, about to marry a Grusha, Cohen got with an Amana, or a Cohen with a Halala or a Zona, and she's a known Zona, a known Halala, a known Grusha, of course you don't let him marry her. We're speaking about a suffix like this, meaning that her husband was reportedly dead. Then Adam came along and said that he's not dead. And if she doesn't know, what's the case over here? She didn't marry one of her Adam and she didn't know for sure that he's dead. So of course, maybe speaking over, she married one of her Adam, become her barley, and I know that my husband's dead, and I married one of the Adam who said that he's dead. Victani, still you force him out. So Rav said in the case where it's 2 against 2, and she knows that she married one of the Adam and she's sure about it, you don't force her out of the second marriage. Here you see apparently you do. He said, no, Isra Kuna Shiny. That's different. This is a case of a Kohen. Kohen has to be on a higher madrega, there we do it. But otherwise, in a regular case, the Rav outlined of 2 against 2, and she married one of the Adam, and one of the Adam who reported that he was dead, and she's sure that he's dead, then we don't force her out. Iboy saying my Dafno, Dafno be Adam. Dafno doesn't mean you force him out. The made him bezin, Rashi says bezin musarim literach achar Adam lahakbish is rishonim. They have to find Adam. The first Adam said she's mutter to get married. The guy's dead, and she married, let's say, one of the Adam. So in a case like that, and he's a Kohen, what means Dafno Bezin should look around for Adam to try to prove that the first Adam were wrong. But once you get married to the guy and you can't prove it, maybe you could stay married, like Rav said. Or speaking about what? There you force him out because the second set of Adam came along, and then after it was 2 against 2, then she married the guy. Rav Nachman Yossi goes like Rav Nachman, like we said before in the second shot in Rav holds like Rav Nachman Yossi. Now, where is it okay for her to stay? Only if she got married before the second set of Adam came. But if the second set of Adam came, now she has a dilemma, as we say in Hebrew. Yeshla dilemma, right? What's the dilemma? 2 Adam said her husband's dead. 2 Adam said her husband's not dead, and now she gets married to Yaakov. A little bit of a chutzpah there. There we force her out. Rav Ashi says, let's go back to the original thing. What did Rav say? Rav said, this is only... Pardon?
In the case where she marries, she finds out that he's alive. Okay?
But she doesn't. What do you mean she finds out?
So she come and say, no, he really is alive.
Right, but she doesn't believe them. She doesn't believe him. She believes the first set of Adam. No, if she believes them, she shouldn't marry. No, of course not. Because if she knows it's him, no, then the second marriage is meaningless. Second marriage is meaningless, and she has to leave the second marriage for sure. Rav Ashi now says, I'll tell you Pashim Shad and Rav. Not that when we say, what did Rav say? That's all. When does she have to leave the second marriage? When it was only 1/8. If 2/8 came along and said Nistapi Shnai Adam, lo Teitze. So they laughed at him. What do you mean lo Teitze? 2/8 come along and say that he's alive and she doesn't have to leave the second marriage. That means that her first marriage is still intact. He's Zanfanami. Rav Shema lo Teitze to come a Rav, lo Teitze Me'etei Rishon. She shouldn't leave her first heter to marry her first husband. Her first husband's there. Of course she has to leave the second marriage. Rav already said that, right? It's not our Mishnah. In our very Mishnah, our Mishnah said near the end of the Mishnah said, let's say she got married without the Rishus of Bezin, meaning not with 1/8 and Bezin, but rather 2/8. 2/8 came along and said that your husband's dead, Muteras Lachsolo. And now she got married based on that. Did she do something bad? No. 2/8 came along and said your husband's dead. She got remarried. She got remarried to somebody else. Now what happened? The first husband showed up. So does she have to leave both marriages? No. She doesn't have to leave this first marriage. She was innocent. Okay, if she's an Ashes Cohen, that's different. Ashes Cohen even should answer, but a regular woman who married somebody else, unwittingly, because she had 2/8, she had reason to believe her husband was dead, and she married somebody else. Fine. Hopefully, there's no children from the second marriage, right? But she can go back to her first husband. Shelo Teitze, she doesn't leave her first marriage. What did we say in our mission? We said Teitze Mizeh. We give her a knas because she didn't check carefully. But if 2/8 came along, she doesn't have to check any more than that. 2/8 say your husband's dead. She got married based on that. The second marriage is meaningless, and she can go back to her first husband if she's a Ashes Yisrael. That's what he means. Rav Shapiro, my lo Teitze to come Rav lo Teitze Me'etei Rishon. Rav already said that. The time Mrs. Rishus Mudlachso, Bam Rav Hunam Rav Hachiyov Sasalacha. Charam Chalcha Beretitma. He didn't say it twice. One was derived from the other thing. So what Rav said was the same idea as the Mishnah. He said it once. He said that's the halacha in the Mishnah that if 2/8 allowed her to get remarried, she's not at fault, and hopefully there's no children from the second marriage, and she can go back to her first husband. That's okay. Itmar, a new piece. Amar Shmuel. Lo Shalom Shalom Machasha. This is only if she doesn't contradict him. Avo Machashaso Lo Teitze. This is what we say. That what if the Adam come along now and say Lo Shalom Maslisin to Teitze that she has to leave based on the husband showing up. That's only if she says, okay, yeah, you're my husband. Let's say you're not my husband. You're not the guy. I don't believe you. You're not my husband. I'm a chasho. Lo teitze. She doesn't have to leave the marriage. Ma'aseh always speak of Elam betray. Two people come along and say this is your husband, like we've just discussed with Rav. Why can she deny it? Two people say this is your husband. Two people say this is your husband. How could you say that this is not? Right? So what if she denies it? If two people come along and say, Inim betray the Amri, this is your husband, how can she say, what difference do we care if she says something and nobody's believed against 2/8? Okay. One person come along and said that this is your husband, right? So only if she denies it, if she contradicts him, then we say what? She doesn't have to leave the second marriage. Hashaska, but if she's quiet, takes as she does, why? Why do we have to believe him? If only 1/8, what happened over here? Originally, now we're going back to 1/8. The Mishnah said 1/8 came along and said, husband's dead. Now, Shmuel says, but if she denies it, she denies his husband, she doesn't know. What are we speaking about? It's not 2/8 who came along and say that your husband's alive, because otherwise, what does it help for her to say he's not alive? Two people say he's alive. Elamai, one person comes along and said, and it's only what if she denies it. But if she doesn't deny his belief, why is he believe? Why is the second guy believe? Again, 1/8, she got married based on the testimony of 1/8 saying her husband's dead. Now 1/8 comes along and says, no, this is your husband. Why do we leave the second guy? Wherever the Torah believed 1/8. Now listen carefully. The Torah, I'm using this word, the Torah believed 1/8. Didn't I say before you need 2/8? So we're going to talk about that. When we say believe, doesn't really mean 8. It's like 2. If we believe the first guy who said your husband's dead, it's like 2. And now when one person comes along and said, no, he's alive, one person not believed against 2. So why did we leave the second guy at all? Why did we leave the second guy at all? I would say if she's quiet, we believe. Why do we believe? Now here Rashi says, okay, Rashi going to say in a minute, we're talking about psulayas, we're not talking about real Edom over here. We're talking about people who are pasulayas, women, slaves, whoever they are, not kosher Edom. The time of Nechemia, wherever the Torah believed 1/8, we go bust to rov deis. Now we look at the majority. We're not talking about real Edom over here. We're talking about people who aren't qualified to give edus. But where the Torah did allow it, it's not because of Adis, it's rather you look at the majority. It's like two women against one man. If the one man is also puzzled, it's like two men against one man. You look at the majority of opinions over here. The boy saying, and Rashi says, if you take a look at Rashi right before the lines get wide, that's not Adis. That's not real testimony. Since one aid is believed, one aid is meaningless in the Torah. So if one aid is believed, the Torah believed not because he's an aid. Look at therefore they're all the same. Just look at most of the opinions over here, most of the testimonies, and you look at the road. So over here it's speaking about, right? Here it's speaking about next Rashi, the first one, the white line. If the husband didn't come, the 8 out, or if the husband didn't show up, because we don't know that he's husband, 8 hour mace. We go 2 against 1. Let's say the husband comes in 2 postulates with him, and she says, I don't know who you are. So kilo makashlu nafka dashtei nashim makishos 8 arishin because it's 2 against 1. She see it. If she says, I know it's not him, it's not my husband, then postulates don't work against that. Postulates don't work against somebody who knows for a fact for themselves. That doesn't work. Rashi goes on to explain. Okay, so here it's speaking about where's postulates, you go basar Deas. So even though there was one person originally who said he was dead, and one person said not dead, now we're saying it's one person says not dead. It's 1 against 1. It's not 1 against 2. And therefore, if she's quiet, or if she's makashim, she says it's not him. I don't believe you. She doesn't have to believe. That's what he says. She doesn't have to believe. If she's not makashim, she wants to believe him, fine, and she believes him. Inami or Rashi, the Gemara goes on. If the first guy who reported that he was dead is an aid kosher, then the mikara, then even 100 women who are puzzled are only good like 1 aid, right? And in other words, the first aid is not like 2. He's like 1 kosher, and the other ones who are not kosher are all like 1. Of my skin code, also isha mikara. If 1 aid would come originally and say he was dead, then 100 people against him wouldn't be able to wouldn't overpower him, because he's a kosher aid. Here it's speaking about where the first person who reported that he was dead herself was a puzzle aid, a woman. Dasi ishi mikara. This I explained on the whenever Torah believe 1 aid Rov Deos, but also 2 women against 1 woman is like 2 men against 1 man. But if it's 2 women against 1 man, then it's 50-50. And Rashi goes on to explain. Take a look at Rashi 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Ke'ed makrish eid. Even she's quiet, lo teitze, she shouldn't leave. She got married to Ula. Like Ula Derisha Nemen Kishnayim. V'hanach Kulu ke'ed echad. They're like 1. In other words, we believe the first guy who said he was dead. So if the first guy was a kosher aid and the other ones were not kosher, and the first guy said he was dead, the other one said not kosher, but they can't contradict him because he's believed like 2. Here it's speaking about where the first aid itself was a puzzle like a woman, and if it's puzzle we go basa Rov Deus. So if it's Rov Deus and it's 2 against 1, then she and therefore 2 against 1 saying that he's alive, she has to go with that. Rashi says further above, halfway down in the Y line, some are mace. Let's say he believed the first guy was a kosher aid. Right? She wouldn't leave. She wouldn't leave the second marriage because he believed the first guy that he's dead. If Shmuel says even if she's quiet, she doesn't say anything. Most people are saying that he's alive, and therefore she has to leave the second marriage. That's what Shmuel says. Yeah. Right. So again, it doesn't mean it's not Adis. Take a look at what Rashi said. Rashi, before 4 lines before the Y's get Y. It's not because of Adis. It's not real Adis, and therefore,
I understand.
Yeah.
But I mean,
yeah.
When you say kol makom, there has to be other places, and what are they talking about? And also Hermina Torah.
Okay, you could say when it comes to kosher or not kosher, sota, all kinds of issues that come up where the Torah believes one person. It's not really because it's not really Adis, and therefore it's not really Adis. We go Basar Rov Deus, and anybody.
Deus, but they define
Deus means
Deus
people.
here as a non-kosher aid.
And not Deus of the people, of human beings, all the human beings who are here.
And this is based on Achei Rav Mahata?
Yeah, presumably, yeah.
This is a big
Right,
deal.
big Kiddush, except for Ula. Ula says, yeah, that's only if there's no kosher Edom at all.
Yeah,
If the
but
first guy
still,
was
even-
kosher, yeah,
even so,
that's
it's a
right,
big
that's
deal.
right. Exactly, right. That's a Kiddush, right? Basar Rov Deus. The Mishnah says, "Tzricha get mizah."
Why
What does that
is the second aid, if the Rashi says 100 afterwards is like nobody, it's like an aid is machash, another aid.
Right, that's Ula's idea. That's when the first person is accepted. That and it's not really as an aid, but if he's a kosher aid, when he's a kosher aid, then he's believed. And now, if two other Adam come along and say that he's not, of course they go bust the kosher Adam. But if all non-kosher Adam come afterwards, they're only believed like one, and therefore it's one against one. And Ula says you believe the first guy, because once you believe the first guy, it's like two. Not that it's really Adis. Where he says, it's not really Adis. But once you believe him, it's like two Adam. It's like two Adam say that he's kosher, that she's free to marry, and therefore that can't be overpowered even by 100 women because 100 women against two Adam is no good. It's not really two Adam, but it's like two Adam. That's Ula's chiddush. So Bishlam Marishan. So the Mishnah said again. Let's go back to our regular case. One person said that he's dead. She got married based on that, and then he showed up, and she's not denying it. He showed up. That's her husband. They hugged, and she says, "This is my husband." It's my husband. They all know it's a husband. Not the issues we had over here is when, we don't recognize the guy or whatever. The base of the Adam is not. But if she recognizes him, fine. So Mishnah said she has to leave both, and she needs to get from both. Now, why would she need to get from the second marriage? Once we know that the first husband showed up, that means that the second marriage was a fake, right? Wasn't really married because she can't be married to two people at one time. So she's always married to the first guy. So why does she need to get from the second? I said, Mishlam Marishan to boy get. I need to need to get. Why do we require to get a get? Even if her husband's Yisrael, because of a knas, right? We're saying because you didn't check things carefully and you messed yourself up. So we're telling you have to leave the first marriage, you have to give her a get. Ela Mesheni am I? Why does she have to leave the second one? It's nus be'alma. It's nus. If a woman commits adultery with some guy, does she have to get a get from them? No, she's married to the first guy. That's why it's called adultery. We're afraid people will say that what? The first guy divorced her. Why was she married to the second guy? Probably because the first guy gave her a divorce, right? People won't know. If they see her married, for instance, to the first guy, Reuben. Then she's married to Yankel. Okay, she probably got a get from Reuben. She's married to Yankel. And now she's going to leave Yankel without a get? Vanessa's evidence to say she's this Yosef will get. Now she can leave Yankel without a get. So we say, give her a get. So Yachi, if that's the case, say for the Tani, the next mission is going to say later on, the mission is going to say, let's say they said your husband died. Then the Skadsha, she didn't marry Yankel. She had Kedusha with Yankel. She got engaged to Yankel. Yaakov Babala, and then her husband showed up. She never consummated with Yankel. Muteris Latzlo, she's allowed to go back to Ruvain. Husband showed up. So Hasam Nami name Megir's the kiddush said, why don't you say also there she should need a get? Because why did she get engaged to Yankel? Because probably the first guy gave her a get. And we don't say over there that she needs a get from Yankel. Here's that. We don't say she should also get. Says no, Lolam boy get. So maybe you do need to get there. And when you say over there she can go back to Ruvain because she never consummated with Yankel, but maybe Yankel has to give her a get. So Yachinim says so that then it looks like this. Then it looks like Reuben was married to her, right? And he reportedly died, right? And she got engaged to Yankel, and Yankel gave her a get, and now she's going back to Reuben. What does that look like? Right? Looks like that's another Isser. You're married to A gives you a divorce, you marry B gives you a divorce, and I'm allowed to marry A again. That's what it looks like that. If you give her, in other words, there's a problem. Say the B, Yankel should give her a get, so it shouldn't look like she's leaving without a get. But if he gives her a get, then she goes back to Reuben. It looks like Masagu Shasmishan. This is the Yakin into Masagu Shasmishan. The Masagu Shasmishan is only Mishanis is when she gets married to the second guy. But if she only got engaged to the second guy, it's not us. Okay. But American, he's safe. The safest is there. Get low pasma. The second guy who gave her a get, that doesn't ruin her from marrying a Kohen. Why? Because the second get was really unnecessary. She was really still married to the first guy. If a guy in the street walks over and gives a woman a get and they don't know who he is, she can't marry a Kohen now because no, it's not even what we call reach a get. It's not even a Isur Rabbanan over there. I get a low pasim marakuna, mechal the low boy gets. Mash doesn't really need a get. The boy get a mile pass. If you need a get, the rabbi say you need a get, you should pass with kuni, even though you don't need to get metaraisa. But reach a get is even also from Ella Seifa Amri. The answer is so it's mashma. You don't need a get. You say maybe you do need a get. You need a get, so it's after this. No, it's not mashma b'shas. This like Rav Shapiro says, it's only mishakidish. It's not so bad. Okay, but it's mashma over there. I say that even though he gave her a get, lo possible can machaz mashma. You don't need a get because if you would need a get, that would possibly from marrying a Kohen. Ella Seifa, I'll tell you why. The Seifa Amri kedusha tosaf. The Seifa there when she only got engaged to Yankel after Reuben was reportedly dead. Let's say it's a mistake. Say the reason you need to get is because of kedusha tos. In our mission, we're saying you need to get. Why? So people shouldn't say she left the second marriage without a get. Because how did she have a second marriage? Presumably the first guy gave her a get. So how did she leave the second marriage without a get? So they say you need a get. Okay, so why don't you say you need a get over there when Yaakov was Makadasher after Reuben was reported dead? Because they'll say it was a mistake. So Reishanam, Nisavatos also is a mistake. The answer is consider Rabbanan. The Rabbanan in the Amish gave her a knas. So Seif and Ami looked to say, so give her a knas there too, because she got engaged to Yankel. Reisha Dav Surah in our Mishnah, where what happened? She actually got married to Yankel. She did an Isser. She didn't check things out too carefully, and it turns out that her husband was still alive. We're talking about where he came back in his life. So she consummated, she committed adultery. The rabbis consider safe for the law of the Isser. She didn't do an Isser. She only got engaged. She can give the ring back. Give the ring back as a mistake. Give the money back, right? Because she didn't get married soon. She didn't get engaged with Bia, right? Presumably he didn't get engaged to her with Bia. It's only she didn't do an Isra. Rabbanan didn't give her a knas, and therefore they didn't require her to get a get. They didn't go that far. Only in our Mishnah, where she got married and consummated to Yankel based on the wrong testimony, as it turned out, and she didn't check things out carefully, we gave her knas, and she has to get a get from both. But in the Seifa, where she only got engaged to the second guy, she doesn't need to get from the second guy. And therefore, why? Because they didn't consummate, because she didn't consummate with the second guy. All right, tomorrow's daf and Sunday's daf, Sunday is Shiur, is on the podcast, Petty Test and Tzaddik. And on Monday, Mitzvah, we'll start from the top of Tzaddik Aleph. Shabbat Shalom, B'chag Sameach L'kulam.
Chag Sameach.